Hey, what's up, y'all? What's up? Thank you for joining this live. I know it's been a minute since we've done some lives, but we back on it now because we got a superstar in the building. We got somebody who just came through Level Up in Tech and tore to pieces, and now this gentleman has gotten a DevSecOps role, and we couldn't be more excited for this gentleman here. But for those of you listening, those of you tuning in, put the LUs in the chat. I want to make sure y'all can hear and see as well. Put the LUs in the chat. And number 2, hit the like button. Hit the heart button, wherever it is. If it's on LinkedIn, hit the like button. I want you to just like, so this can share to your people. They need to see this, all that good stuff. All right. So now we'll be talking about from talent acquisition to DevSecOps, right? So I want to introduce y'all to a gentleman who came through the program, who started the program about 8 to 9 months ago and just killed everything, super sharp guy, got it, even though he battled with some, roadblocks like everyone when they're learning, he still was able to stay sharp, stay motivated, and push through. And this man is now starting a DevSecOps role. I want y'all to put the JWs in the chat. Put the JWs in the chat for our guy, James Williamson. What's up, man?
How's it going, Broadus? Yeah. It's been a journey. One that thankfully I had a lot of support from, the coaches at Level Up in Tech and at my company and my own personal support systems. And yeah, man, I'm stoked. I'm ready. I'm ready to hop in.
Yeah. I bet you are. We're going to get into that, man. We're going to go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes because I know people out there want this information and just want to just see someone that's just like them going through the journey and learn how you did it. All right. So, James, could you share a little bit about your background that really, sparked your interest to transition from that into cloud?
Yeah. When I was like 8 or 9 years old, my parents had this old like IBM floppy disk computer, and that was my first, I guess, interaction with computer technology. Back on my floor, it was like sitting on the floor. we were absolutely broke, but we had a computer sitting on the floor, and I took their computer apart and broke it. It completely destroyed it, but it was so cool taking it apart and seeing all the stuff inside. And I always thought it was really neat how like all of those little things made that thing show on the screen and like how it works. So fast forward to high school, like I'm building my own computers, doing all that stuff. And
nice.
I don't know what I want to do. So I just decided, you know what, I'm going to be a teacher and teach algebra and math. So that's what I did. After enough years in education, I was like, all right, this isn't the road. But what skills transition? So I was like, all right, HR. And this whole time I'm in talent acquisition, hiring all these people to do all this cool stuff that I'm always like, man, like these projects that they get to work on, like some of this, like I was hiring Salesforce people that got to develop Salesforce back when it first like kind of was a big thing, and like doing all this application development that they were talking about the hiring teams were telling me about all this cool stuff they were going to get to do. And I got to a point in my career, I was like, why am I not doing the stuff that those people are working on instead of recruiting them to work on that stuff? And so, yeah, I got to a point where I just made up my mind, and I talked to, a couple different people about a couple different options. And I think the thing that really set me off Level Up in Tech is there was a company that we worked in partnership with, and I saw a video they did with somebody who transitioned from being a nurse to a DevOps engineer there. And I was like, you know what? If she can do it, so can I. And here we are.
Absolutely, man. And that's the mindset I want everyone to really hone in on, right? If James can do it, if I can do it, if who he saw can do it, anyone can do this, right? Tech can be learned. It's the mindset shift that we need to change, and it needs to happen in order for us to be successful. Because there's going to be a lot of things that challenge you when you start learning tech. Now, speaking of challenges, right? What were some of the main challenges you anticipated in making the career shift, and how did you prepare to face them?
Yeah. Even though I taught algebra, I was never like really good at math. And so one of the reasons why or at least higher level math, like algorithmic stuff. And so I always thought that the math part would be a big challenge for me getting into this. I was like the coding stuff. I
Yep.
took C++ in high school, AP C++, or AP computer science, where we had to do all this stuff in C++. And I was like, oh my God, that was overwhelming for like a 16-year-old like brain who was not thinking about computer programming, but was thinking about like how fast can my car go today. And so I was like, man, I can't do this. And when I got into the program, I went through the AWS stuff at first, and I was like, okay, this is good. Like the cloud practitioner stuff was like, it was flowing nicely. I was getting it. Like it went into the Linux stuff. I was like, okay, all right, this is making some sense. And then it got to the developer certification, and it started going into all these other things about like APIs and all these other things. And I did hit a roadblock there, because I was like, I'm reading this stuff and I'm watching these videos and this coaching sessions and trying to do these like projects. And I just kept hitting roadblock after roadblock. Like my stuff wasn't working the way it was supposed to work. And I got discouraged. Like there were days where like, and I think Troy's one of the coaches, and there were times where I was troubleshooting like on certain things for hours at a time to try to get it to work. And I message him, and he would just tell me, hey, look, you've done what you could do for the night. Go to bed, sleep on it, come back tomorrow and figure out what you can do. And I was like, no, I got to figure this out. Like this is bothering me. But I hit some roadblocks there. I hit some roadblocks in the Python stuff. But the thing is there's so many resources out there, like in supplement. The coaches are there. Like if you have a strong desire to do the thing, and you keep pushing regardless of the roadblock, and you just keep going, you're like, no, look, I'm gonna figure this out. I get it. Or you do the thing where you're saying, you know what, I'm gonna sleep on it. I'm gonna worry about it tomorrow. But you do come back tomorrow, and you're like, okay, here we go. I think that's what kept me pushing, was like, I knew this was something I wanted to do. I knew it was going to be a huge change for me, in terms of, just career development overall, and where I'm going to be in 5 years compared to where I would have been in 5 years in talent acquisition and HR is going to be so substantially different, that I was just looking at it going like it, that is what constantly drove me to keep doing it and push through. So yeah, I mean, if a TA manager, a person in HR that like fumbled around with building their own computers, sometimes causing circuit issues because I decided to touch it with my bare hands, can do this and push through and do it, like so can anybody else. Like I'm no smarter than your next person. And I think the stuff that Level Up in Tech and how they have it set up so incrementally is what allowed me to actually like understand it and do it, because it was paced in such a way and layered in such a way that like everything built on top of each other, and you didn't have to like move forward until you got the stuff prior. And you shouldn't, because otherwise you'll confuse yourself even more. But like the coaches are there, everybody was there to answer any types of questions that you had, and even would help you troubleshoot and go through stuff, as long as you did research and you had tried some things yourself. Like they were willing to step in and also help too. So it was a big support system from the program.
Yeah. So one of the things that we really want to convey to everyone that's watching and listening is you're going to be frustrated. In order to go from zero to getting in the cloud, it's going to be a lot of things you need to learn in a shorter period of time than it would take somebody to go to a university, etc. And even then, right, they may not be learning the right things. But you just have to put in your mind, okay, this is where I'm at and this is where I want to be, and nothing's going to stop me. For sure, just like anyone, regardless of the program or regardless of your self-learning, regardless if you have a mentor, you're going to hit roadblocks. And tech is all about what you do when you hit the roadblocks. Tech is not about knowing the right answer off the rip. It's about finding the right answer, right? And if you have an attitude and a mindset of let me find the right answer, you're going to do well. A lot of people, look at tech and say, hey, I can get paid this. Sure, you can, right? And let's be honest, I'm gonna be super transparent with everybody. I mean, when I got into tech, I got in it for the money, right? I got in it for a better pay, a better life, etc. But I also knew if I hit roadblocks and there were some challenges, in order for me to get that better pay, that better life, that better opportunity, I had to work through those roadblocks. Some people are coming in the tech, regardless of what area, outside of cloud, even networking, project management, whatever, and they hit roadblocks and they say, it's not for me. Listen, it's all about mindset shift. Shift your mindset to say, I'm here to solve problems. Hey, it may take you an hour or two, come back to it, reset, let's keep it going. And that's one thing I admire about you, where you push through the imposter syndrome, because that's real. That's our reality, right? Imposter syndrome tells us what we are thinking the worst case scenario. And all fact, it doesn't even happen. But in our mind, we think it's going to be there, right? And you push through all of those things, man. And we just want to commend you. And, we want to, just ask you, really, do you have, or can you tell us what some of the strategies are that help you really overcome any anxiety that associated with the career change itself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky to have a support system in my personal life, friends and family that were extremely supportive of this. I can tell you, like, I have a dad that, my dad, he's one of those guys that, like, he doubts everything until he sees it happen. And he was like, why are you making this change? Like, you're so far into this. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And he was like, I remember when I first started, he was like, changing careers again. Like, all right. And I was just like, all right, well, we'll see. Like, we'll see. I mean, he was supportive, don't get me wrong, but he's one of those guys that, like, until he sees it, he don't believe it. And but my wife and I told my boss at work, like, this is what I wanted to do, and this is why. And I think the biggest thing, though, was no matter how many people you have supporting you, if you don't have a good enough reason to want to do this, whether it's pay, like, I don't know that pay is ever a good enough, like a full good enough reason, unless that is your main motivator for everything, and you're just that type of person. But if you, like Brada said, if you don't have a desire to solve problems, and you don't like puzzles, and you don't like fixing something, like, if you're like a person that goes out to your car and you're like you find an issue with your car and you kind of like tinkering with it and like fixing it, and like you get a thrill and like an endorphin rush out of like solving that problem, or solving a problem for another person, or fixing stuff, like, that is what's going to get you through this. And I think at the end of the day, the motivating factor in my own head is what kept me going, because I just, like you said, like, there was a week or two in between where I just had to take off. Like, I was like, I need to like reevaluate something. I need to get back. I need to take a vacation. I need to go, because the program is extremely fast paced. And if you're working full time and stuff, like, it takes a lot out of you. And sometimes you just gotta take away and go release and like whatever. But the motivation has to be strong enough within you to come back and continue to push. Right. So I would say, like, the main thing that anybody who is joining this or wants to join is like looking at it from the perspective of, make sure that your internal motivation is strong enough to get you through quite a few hardships, because you're going to hit them. And you have to overcome them, regardless of whether you have a good support system or not. Someone over in the side can tell you, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. But if you internally can't get to the point where you think you can do it, you're going to stop anyways. And that's never going to be good. So just make sure your own internal motivation is the right motivation to keep you pushing through. Because you can earn money in a lot of different ways. You might look at your job you have now and be like, you know what, I earned enough for my life, and because this has gotten so hard, like I'm done. I want don't do that to yourself. Look at it from the standpoint of like, look at where you're at in 5 years, like from now. Yeah, you might be earning the same amount that you'd earn at a junior level DevOps role right now. Some of you might be earning that same amount. Some of you may be earning less than half of that amount. But in 5 years from now, how fast tech salaries grow and things like that, like look at it from the standpoint of future, family, what type of things do you want to have in life and all that. And if that's not motivation enough, I don't know what is.
No, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head, because programs like this, or any program or any type of learning you're doing, a lot of people want it accelerated.
Yep.
Right. So you're doing it because you don't want to take the years that the status quo, of it. It takes 2-4 years for you to get into it. So being that you're going at a faster pace and you accelerate it, you got to think of, if you're on a plane, you're going to hit turbulence, right? And sometimes it takes you going through that turbulence for you to hit very smooth air for a very long time. So the turbulence now is just preparing you, that the person that wants to learn all these things in a shorter period of time, to be able to get into a role and keep that habit that you've kept for the last 6-8 months, 12 months, whatever it is, and outwork a lot of people that has gotten complacent in their roles as well. All right. So one thing that I want to clarify, and a lot of people may not like what I'm about to say, but I'm just telling you the truth. A lot of people come into tech or even try to get in the cloud, and they have this anxiety and they have this fear about, what if I don't know anything? What if I don't learn it? Man, I'll just feel like I don't know nothing. But the truth is, no one knows anything. Everyone feels the same way you feel, from the CEO down to the lowest person on the totem pole, whoever that is. When they come to work, they're like, I know what I'm supposed to do, but if I get something I don't know how to do, how am I going to find out how to solve that problem? If you teach yourself, if you refine your process of solving problems now, when you're going through projects, when you're going through hands-on labs, etc., you can keep that process when you get into a role, and you can say, okay, they're giving me something. Because let me rewind this back. When you get into a role, you're going to get something that you've never played with or never seen before. A company is going to have something that's customized that is impossible for you to see before you started there, or a service that you just haven't thought about using, and they're going to give it to you, and they're going to say, hey, number one, a lot of companies that hire juniors, they know you're green, so they're going to give you some time to amp you up. But in some cases, they're going to give you something and say, hey, we want you to figure out how to solve problems with this, because we got a client that we're going to use this service, et cetera, on their infrastructure. And you got to be the person that says, okay, let me look at my process and how I solved problems before, and go through that process to learn how to solve problems with that. And that is it. It doesn't have to be, even with James talking about, if you tinkering with things, you like solving puzzles, even if you're a waitress or a waiter, if you solving critical problems at work all day, customers' orders are messed up and you have to think quick on your feet, those things transfer into the tech industry. So I want to give y'all that value, that gem, to understand that regardless of what anyone tells you out here, you can be the person that solves the problem and get into a role. But you have to have that internal belief throughout it all to be able to keep going through the roadblocks. The roadblocks are going to be hard. Quitting is easy, and settling is easy. Like James said, hey, I've been working at this company for some years. I make cool money. I mean, I don't have to push myself. But you got to think about where you can be in 5 years. 6 to 8 months, 6 to 12 months can take you 5 years down the road ahead of all your peers that's in this industry that you're in now. And then you can outwork some peers when you get into cloud, because you have developed a habit over the last 6, 8, 9, 12 months of continuous learning. All right. So please take that as a gem if y'all haven't taken anything. So with that being said, right, Now that you're about to start your DevSecOps role, what are you most excited about, and what challenges do you anticipate going in there?
Yeah. I'm just excited to keep on like learning like new things, really. Like just like you said, right? They're going to come with things that you have no idea about. I've already started sitting in on the DevOps stand-ups with the team that I'm going to be on, the platform ops team, with my company, and they're already talking about technologies and things that like I've never used before, like Leapfrog and some other things that they use on that team and all that. And I'm just excited to get in there and learn those things too, and learn a lot of the stuff that I learned at Level Up in Tech and apply it to that. However, I think also I'm excited to bring some of the things I have learned at Level Up in Tech to that program, because one of the things that they struggle with is good documentation. Well, one of the things that Level Up in Tech makes you do is good documentation. And so like I have like Level Up in Tech made me practice with documenting things like your granny could understand like how to go through this process. And I know later in some of your projects, like it moves away from that particular type of documentation process and into a bit more formalized like DevOps one. But the fact of the matter is I know how to do that documentation process. I know what good documentation looks like. The coaches reviewed it, said it looked good. They had some, edits here and there on like all the projects I submitted. There were some edits here, some spelling things, some different things here. So they would go through and edit your stuff too, or give you recommendations on how to improve them. So when you do get into a role, and some of you might start with smaller mom and pop companies, some of you might start with like medium-sized companies, large-sized companies, like documentation is going to be something that you will have to do, right? And this preps you really well for that. So I'm excited to bring, some of those things, some of those skills that I learned at Level Up in Tech to actually be able to better the processes, within the DevOps teams that I'm joining too. So challenges. Oh man, I foresee a lot. I foresee a lot because it's going to be, and it's now the real world, right? And the things that I do don't just have an effect on my AWS free tier account. They're going to affect the business, right? And it's kind of scary going from this to that, but I'm confident in the skills that I've obtained, and the research skills that I've obtained while troubleshooting things that Level Up in Tech, and understanding the thought process, and understanding at least I know how these things should work, right? And like this is, if it's screwed up, this is how it will probably be. If it's working okay, this is how it would probably be. And I have enough hands-on experience through the labs that they do, because they do a lot of really good real world like type situations that you will have to potentially have to do at your company. It might use a different container, it might use a different application, but the process is the same, right? And the one thing I can tell you, the cool thing about during my interview, they asked me questions about like, have you used Git? What is Git? Like, explain this to us. Like, how does it work? Like, explain like containerization. Like, how would you do this? And they asked me some Kubernetes questions, which for those not familiar is a containerization software that does clusters basically. We didn't use Kubernetes in the thing, but I was like, well, I don't know, but here's how I would do it in Swarm, which we did use in the program.
Right, yeah.
Because what you do is it'll give you the knowledge of these technologies, and you can apply them to other technologies that are out there that do a very similar thing. And they were actually very surprised at the depth of knowledge that I had coming out of this program. In a lot of their interview questions, they were like, oh, you know how to do that in IAM? I was like, oh yeah, we did that like in project number 2. And they were like, oh, we didn't know like DevOps 1 engineers like knew how to do that stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, you just give permissions and do this and do that. And so, I guess the one thing I can say is like, it's going to be scary. Like when you transition from this to a real role, you're going to be thinking like, oh man, what if I mess up? What if I screw this computer system up? How much of an effect is that going to have? Don't think of it like that. It is going to be scary, but be humble and understand that you're still going to have a lot to learn, right? As you get into one of these things. And I think that's the thing I look forward to the most, and hopefully everyone will. Because I think to be successful in this program, same as in the real world, you have to have a continuous learning mindset.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm most excited about. Even though I foresee tons of challenges, I'm going to be working on a great team. They're going to be there and support, and so will any company you probably join. You're going to have senior engineers that are going to be there to support you. Make sure you don't like destroy their whole system, and allow you the space to be able to learn as well while you're doing stuff, because you're not going to know how to do everything when you join. And like Bro said, they are going to give you a project. You're going to be like, oh no, I don't know how to do this. But the thing about Level Up in Tech is they give you the process of how to figure out how to do it. And so while you're going through those things, remember the process you go through to figure those things out, because it's the same process you're going to go through at work to figure stuff out.
Absolutely, man. And I like, what you said about it's going to be scary because they're going to give you some things you haven't done, and it was all about the process. And you said that it was things that you didn't learn, but you learned something similar, and you were able to translate how these things are different and what you learned and how is it similar. So I segment into helping people understand when people try to dive into this. Number one, it's two things they feel like they have to do. Number one is they feel like they have to have a ton of certifications. And number two, they feel like they have to learn every single thing on the job description. Right. So, what I want y'all to understand is you can learn what you learn. You can learn the basics, you can learn the fundamentals, and you can apply it in more complex ways. And you don't have to learn everything on the job description. If you have 50%, if you tinkered with 50% of what they have asking you to have on the job description, apply it to the role. Well, man, I mean, I don't even have that experience. Exposure equals experience. If you expose yourself to some tools and services, for instance, I keep saying this all the time because I want people to understand. If you've been exposing yourself to a certain service for let's say the last 2 months, and then you get hired and you get into a role, and a couple of your teammates have been there a few years, but they haven't used the service that you've been tinkering with for the last 2 months. And now the company says, hey, we're about to use the service that you've been using for the last 2 months or 3 months or whatever it is. Who has more experience in that case? It will be you, because you've been exposed to solving problems with that service. So exposure equals experience. Yes, you're not going to have all the skills that's required for this role, right? Apply anyway. Go in there and showcase your ability to solve problems with which you know how to solve. Companies will look at you and say, you know what, even though that person doesn't have all the skills, right? Because the skills are just a wish list. Even though they don't have everything on that wish list, they have a great attitude, which is more for some of the people that we've already interviewed, right? Let's say they interviewed 10 people that are just, excuse my language, just shitty. And you come and you have a great attitude, but you don't have all the skills. But you're willing to learn. You have a passion for solving problems. You're just excited to work for the company. They're going to hire you. That's all it is. And yes, you're going to have the imposter syndrome just like you had when you started your journey, that, okay, here comes the big boy. Here comes the real deal. I don't know if I can do this. I promise you, you'll be able to do it. And you're going to learn so much over the next year, 2 years, that you're just going to take your career to the next level, because you already have a mindset of pushing yourself and continuing to learn. So understand this is a continuous learning journey for the rest of your life if you be in this industry. Tech is always changing, so many new things to learn. You're going to learn something, you use a service for 6 months to a year, and next thing you know, you're not even using that service for the next few years. And you like, I forgot how to use that. That's just how it works. And you got to relearn it over again because things have changed. All right, y'all. So with that being said, James, what advice would you give someone who's in the same position that you were in, who's looking to level up but unsure where to really start their journey, man?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, it took me, I don't know what, I'm going to say my age because I don't really care. It took me 20 years from the time I was 18 to the time now I'm 38 to like finally do the thing that I should have done when I was 18 years old and went to the technical field. So in terms of getting started, number one, it's never too late. But my biggest thing is just have enough faith in yourself to take the leap. If you don't, you just have to start, right? You can't sit here and keep going like, oh well, let me do my research. You can't have like analysis, like paralysis of analysis, right? Like if you keep thinking like, well, this job and like, can I do this while I'm working full time and have this and this and this? You're going to have to make sacrifices over the next 6 to 8 to 9 to 12 months, however long it is that you end up doing the program for, whether it's self-paced or the fast-paced one. You're going to have to make sacrifices. You're going to have to realize that you don't get to play video games tonight. You get on. You get to, like, I've got my video game up over there because I'm done now. But you you don't get to play video games tonight. You don't get to go out with the boys. You don't get to go out with the girls. You don't get to go. You don't get to go do that. Can you still do it here and there? Sure, but you have to make the sacrifices, and be willing to do that. So if I'm looking at advice to get started, it's one, be willing to sacrifice. Number two, take the leap. Like cold turkey, like jump in, like, but be sure that this field is something that you enjoy. Like I do know that there are types of people that can function and do a job without having a passion for the job, but are you going to be as good as the person that does have some type of passion around the work you're doing? And what I mean is like a passion for solving problems. You don't have to have a passion for computers. You don't have to have a passion for like, oh, I have 64 gigs of RAM in my thing. You don't have to have a passion for that type of thing. What you have to have a passion for is learning and a passion for solving problems. And if you have a passion for those things, another thing I can tell you is if you have people skills, like really solid, good, like people skills, or you're a leader, those skills are so in demand in the tech field because there are a lot of and I don't mean this in a negative way, a lot of very introverted engineers. And they just don't want to do a whole lot of talking to people, and they want to be hands on keyboard in a dark room, like typing code. And that's fine. The world needs those people. But the world also needs engineers who can talk to people, talk to customers, explain the technical things and relate it in a way that they can understand, to be able to lead another human being and to be able to coach and mentor and do those types of things too. So if you're good with people, like, that's another thing. That's a big skill set that's in demand in tech right now. Like there's a lot of companies looking for good tech leaders. Are you going to start there right after leaving Level Up in tech? I don't know. Maybe you'll get lucky, but like most of the time, you're going to start at the bottom at a junior level and work your way up. But if you have those people skills, you'll be able to work up to a leadership position too faster than someone who's an introvert, right? Who's a bit more introverted and not as good with people as well. So yeah, I guess like circling back, because I kind of talked in circles, but
no, you're good, man.
Advice is like ensure that you are willing to make the sacrifice, because if you're not and you hit a point, like that's where people kind of hit roadblocks too. They're like, man, like I'm not being able to go with my friends, and they start going out with their friends, and all of a sudden they're 2 weeks behind on work, and then they hit that roadblock of, well, I'm 2 weeks behind. Like, how am I going to catch up? Like, can I catch up? And the Level Up in Tech team will work with you on that, because I'll be very transparent and vulnerable here. I hit that roadblock of I got a couple of weeks behind, and I reached out to them, and they worked with me of how to get back on track, and I did. But you have to be that sacrifice has to be willing to be made. You have to have the motivations, and then just take the jump. It's like when people go skydiving, they say the hardest part is walking up to the edge of the plane, right? Got all that anxiety, right? But once you're out, it's like, woo, right? So it's very similar. Like, don't get stuck in analysis of paralysis and lose an opportunity to change your entire life.
No, I totally agree with everything. I would add as well, if you're just getting started, if you're brand new, take some free lessons on like what is cloud, right? What is AWS? What is Azure? What is GCP, Google Cloud Platform, right? What are other cloud service providers that are out there and how does it work, right? So if you like and if you're interested in that, then you got to go ahead and set a goal like, okay, hey, I like this. I would like to really, to be honest with you, get a job in the next year. Right here is what I'm about to tell y'all is where people start to fail too. Because in your head, you say to yourself, man, I want to get a job in the next 9, 10, 12 months. But then when you project somebody say, hey, what are you trying to do? Well, I just started cloud and I was thinking about, trying to land a job. But I mean, I'm thinking probably in the next couple of years or something, maybe 3 years or something, I'll be able to land a job. Internally, you told yourself you wanted to do it in 12 months. But externally, because you didn't believe in conviction of what you said to yourself, you say 2, 3 years because you scared somebody gonna say, you can't do that in 12 months. Listen, if you said it to yourself, that means the dream can happen. So only thing you need to do is just figure out the type of person you are, right? Am I a type of person that I study alone and I like to do this by myself and I just get in a zone when I'm by myself, learning, watching videos, tinkering? Then you can probably self-pace and self-learn this thing out. If you're the type of person where you like, I get distracted and man, I just need some direction and I need somebody to just, hey, you got to do this and I need to be working with a group of people, then a program probably is right for you, right? If you're a person that says, I'm really not comfortable working with a lot of people, but I want to work with somebody, then maybe hiring a mentor one-on-one could be great for you. You have to understand who you are as a person and then go ahead and make the goal of, hey, mentor, or hey, program, or hey, self, we got to get this done in 12 months or whatever time frame you're giving yourself. And these are the things required of me to be able to move forward. All right. So listen, I didn't want to take all day of your time. I wanted to show y'all a superstar that came through the program and just killed it. And this man just about to start his DevSecOps role and about to kill it. We're super excited for him. And James, thank you so much for joining us on this live. For those of you that are watching, listen, I want to invite y'all to our community. We got a new community called Cloud Career Accelerator. Go ahead and put the CCK in the chat, and we're going to send you a link to our Cloud Career Accelerator community where you get a free course, the Cloud Computing Career Kickoff course, all these CCKs and all that, excuse me, y'all. But the Cloud Computing Career Kickoff course where we talk about what is cloud, we talk about some of the roles that are hot out there and how much you can make, how can you fast track your way into landing those roles, and we give you a little project you can tinker around with as well. So put the CCKs in the chat, and look, let's continue to level up. James got his role. We want to see what James at in next year. He's probably going to be a leader, I'm pretty sure. And continue to build your skills, continue to build your people skills, continue to build your soft skills, right? If you looking at how to communicate, how to focus on really, if you're working with a customer, whatever you're working on in the project, how can you talk to someone who doesn't know anything about what you're doing and help them understand what you're doing? All right. So Rosalind, CCK, I see what you did, but CCK, put the CCK in there. I got you, y'all. And thank you so much, James, for your time, brother. And everybody get the hand claps for James. Wish him well, right? And nothing but success in his current role. And we appreciate y'all once again. Let's continue to level up. All right. See y'all later.